This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with a daily wrestling news update. Just one note, the King of Connecticut did a short interview with former UFC fighter Phil Baroni's wife. Of course, Phil Baroni is right now in Mexican jail on a murder charge. Former WCW wrestler Charlie Norris, who was known as Thunderbolt, passed away at 57 today. He was under contract, I guess, in 93 and sued the company after, and according to Eric Bischoff, got about $100,000 settlement. Apparently, he sued them because they wanted him to do a Indian gimmick or native indigenous gimmick, and he felt that was racist. Eric Bischoff, I heard him talking about this, and he said he would have only been making 50 or 60,000 a year. So 100,000 around that time would have been a good deal for them. And WCW was known for settling lawsuits. It came out in Kevin Sullivan's podcast, that racial discrimination lawsuit. There was a class action lawsuit that was related to Vince Russo making some comments, I guess, regarding talents of different races. Anyways, apparently, according to Kevin Sullivan, they all got $1 million settlements. I know Sonny Ono and that one wrestler who's in jail right now that was also a tough man fighter, also was one of the ones that got the settlement. There was a bunch more. But I don't remember Charlie Norris at all, and I was a WCW fan. He was an underneath guy. I did watch one of his matches, though, and I can say as a native wrestler, he was better than Tatanka, who was also doing the native gimmick around that same time. Maybe he was WCW's response to Tatanka, but the one thing I noticed, even though he sued them over this, his native dance, and I'll put a picture up for him in case any of you guys recognize him, but his native dance was better than Tatanka's, and he seemed more agile than Tatanka, bigger and taller than Tatanka. So there could have been some more potential there, but who knows? He died fairly young, so who knows what issues he could have had that led to him not getting pushed and getting released, because there's a lot of guys under a WCW contract that were under contract for a long time, even if they weren't over. But from watching his match as a young guy, he seemed to have potential. He would have been in his late 20s when he was signed. Apparently, this Bellator show featuring Fedor and Ryan Bader on CBS last weekend only did a 0.15 rating, which is terrible. And there really is, we're in a down period of MMA interest right now. Hard Body Harrison, thank you, no gimmicks guy, otherwise known as Jack Kilby, who interviewed Tony Jones tonight and is putting on an event on May the 6th, 2 events the same day in Ottawa, Canada at the Earl Armstrong Arena. Great North Wrestling. But got distracted there. But yeah, it seems like MMA, the UFC is still selling out the arenas, but it doesn't seem like, and there's like not as many people following it as much as like from 2008-ish until, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. But it seemed like just in the gyms and stuff, I noticed when it's on, no one really watches and people aren't talking about it. Maybe it's because in Canada, there's no more George St. Pierre. Everyone was always talking about George St. Pierre. But I remember even Anderson Silva, people were always talking about MMA in the gym and stuff, but it seems they're really lacking stars these days. Balls for late. Maybe Fedor should have retired 10 years ago, but he still gets paid. The thing about MMA is, and Dan Severn said this too, when you're young in your career and better, you're not making that much money. And when you're older and losing your reaction, and the more concussions you have, the easier it is to be concussed and knocked out. You're not as good for those reasons, but you get paid more because your name is worth more. So you kind of get paid after the fact. You get those huge paydays after you're not as good in MMA. Piper's doing well. Again, I have a bit of PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder, over Piper's incident that happened with her health. So I'm just taking a little break from having her for now. I share her with my ex-wife because it was very traumatic for me, and when I'm very scared that it's going to happen again, and I'm very close with her, so I'm just taking a break from her for a little bit, but I still see her. Apparently, the Usos might not be on the upcoming Canadian shows due to Jimmy Uso's criminal record. However, it's only a DUI, and I think it's pending still. I don't know if he's actually been charged with it. I know in the U.S., you can get in the U.S. with the DUI. Canada is different. They're stricter. But I remember Vader telling me that he had an assault charge, and he just had to pay a fee, and it was all done through WWE. And Tatanka, too. He had some sort of – there was something screwed up with him, that there was like an extra fee he had to pay to get into Canada due to some legal reason. And Jeff Hardy, didn't he on his last WWE run still get into Canada, even though he has a long list of stuff? I mean, it all depends on the lawyers and how much pull you have, I think. John Fitch, Thursday night at 8 p.m. on Old School Shooters. There you go. I'm finding out about some guys. He's a UFC welterweight star. I'm finding out about some people on the podcast I haven't heard of, but there's some good stuff on those podcasts. Will the Great North Wrestling Live event be on YouTube? Yes, but not live. And there is going to be 2 shows recorded that day, specifically because of the content for YouTube. Because I'm not sure. I haven't had the talks with Jack Kilby. I don't know exactly what his plans are, but I do know that he wants to try and run regularly and get storylines going. So that's something to look forward to. Stay tuned. The Great North Wrestling Podcast is Sunday nights at 8 usually. Sometimes it's earlier, but he answers questions on that podcast. If you have any questions related to that, I might be able to advise him on some stuff, but that's his baby. I'm just involved in the filming of it. I'm pretty much retired from wrestling promotion. Congratulations to Batista. His A Knock at the Cabin movie was first over the weekend. Grossed over $14 million and dethroned Avatar, or I think it was called. I deleted it, but I think it was Avatar. Either way, the important thing is Batista was number 1. Good for him. Apparently, according to Dave Meltzer, Comcast is no longer interested in buying the WWE. That's the parent company of the NBC. Jack Kilby says we will be doing a loop this season for Great North Wrestling. There you go. Jesse knows Charlie. Well, I'm sorry for your loss. It's Lanny Poffo lived to be 68. This guy passed away at 58. Who knows if I'll live to be either of those ages? You gotta enjoy every day. And I had a great workout today. Did a lot of videos. So I'm having a good week so far. There we go. I'll be honest with you guys. Although I follow the news on fighting, and I've completely lost interest in it too. I'll watch the highlights, and I like UFC Embedded to see how they train and stuff, and it motivates me to watch them train before I work out sometimes. But I find MMA pretty boring overall too. I have different tastes. The best MMA was the original when there was no weight classes and people didn't train for MMA, and it was like one sport against another. It was more interesting to me than now everybody trains it. The top heavyweights aren't as big. There's no real big stars in heavyweights other than John Jones, who hasn't fought in a long time. It's not like there's a Brock Lesnar around. It really piques my interest or anything. And like Ronda Rousey also had a good run when she was killing everybody in the first round. But there's no, like, there hasn't been any female fighters that have really interested me since then either. Why do I keep banging the desk? I'm not on a desk. I think you're imagining something. Pride was good. I agree with Pulsar Lights. Pride was also very good. Sam says, "Oh my gosh, I won't get into those type of conspiracy theories. I don't know anything about that, but I'm not going to get into stuff I don't know about on here. But you're all entitled to your opinions. I'm going to sign out. Have a great evening. Watch that Tony Jones interview that Jack Kilby did, and I also did a review of a Shawn Michaels shoot interview that I watched earlier today. That was quite interesting. Oh, one last thing that I forgot to mention in my shoot interview review of that Shawn Michaels shoot was he said he wasn't surprised that Brian Pillman died. They pretty much knew he had problems. Everyone knew. And he said he didn't doubt that people tried to do something about it, but unless someone wants help, there's really nothing you can do. And I agree with that. And that was before WWE had their wellness program. And that was a true tragedy with Pillman. I know he was born with a heart defect, but there's no doubt he was also doing other stuff, according to reports. So that's really too bad. But I like that shoot interview with Shawn Michaels overall. He had some good points in it, including it's true when he liked the part about when he was talking about Jim Cornette and how he had heat with them. But it even applies to today, saying, listen, times have changed. Just let it go. It's not the past anymore. And I mean, that even applies to me. Honestly, wrestling's never going to go back to the past. Maybe some companies like Great North Wrestling can try and bring back old school, but the mainstream will never be. It's turned into a different animal, so you just got to accept it, not let it bother you. So that's good advice.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot